NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski is my early leader for Coach of the Year. They finally got a smart coach who's a grown-up, very mature. I love what he's doing. They not only lead the NFL in rushing, but they lead the NFL in 10-plus yard rushes, meaning that's a big play rush offense. They'll hit you over the top as well. Baker Mayfield worries me, but he does have multiple touchdowns in each game. I'll probably know more after this weekend against Pittsburgh. But the Browns defense scares me on the back end, but they have forced 12 turnovers this year. Number 1, Baker worries me in big spots, but I got Cleveland number 10. I love their coach.
Number 9.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, you can't run on them, so it's going to be will versus force this weekend. Cleveland's run game against Pittsburgh's run defense. Their upcoming schedule, Browns and Ravens, will tell me a lot about Pittsburgh. I've still got some doubts. They're only 24th in the NFL yards per play. Big Ben's not making mistakes, 70% completion rate. But the Steelers have beaten teams with a combined record of 3-15-1. They've beaten a bunch of nonsense, and so I have my real doubts this weekend. I got them at 9, one spot ahead of Cleveland, and I'm not sure if I voted on this tomorrow, I'd feel the same. I think it's a toss-up with Cleveland a little more explosive offensively.
Number 8.
Rams, 4-0, but it's against the NFC East. They are beating up on the Giants and the Cowboys. Number 1 in yardage differential. That's a real thing, meaning they are explosive. Their defense has the most sacks this year. That was a real point of contention in the offseason. We're not getting the quarterback. Todd Gurley's gone. They've done a nice job. They got Cam Akers, Henderson. They got nice running backs now. I think it's a real good room to be in. It's a good team going forward. I think there's some limitations if Goff senses pressure. But the reality is Goff has won 2 games for every game he's lost with Sean McVay, and I got the Rams at 8.
Number 7.
Tampa Bay have some concerns. Leonard Fournette still banged up. Chris Godwin still out. I would like to see this team when they're healthy. Against Chicago, they have, they've got their best tight end out for the year. Fournette's gone. Godwin, Mike Evans. Here's the good news. Love Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator. They have the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL. And Mike Evans, when he's healthy, he and Brady have a relationship right now. So this is a team that should get better, but I keep them at 7 because they look like garbage against the Bears. You got Brady barking at people, and frankly, their protection wasn't very good.
Number 6.
Buffalo Bills, not much to dislike. Josh Allen, they have 30-plus points in each of their last 3 games. I have them this low because coming up, they face Tennessee, the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Seahawks. So I feel like in the next month, I'm really going to get a sense of what they are. I have said this before. I think it's the best young coaching staff in the NFL. This is it. That and the 49ers, best young coaching staff in the NFL. They've done a miraculous job with Josh Allen. But the truth is the next 3-4 games.
Number 5.
Patriots. I would take the Patriots with Cam Newton over the Bills this morning if they played. Still the best coach team in the league. Keep your eye on Damian Harris emerging as a star at running back. The second best rushing team after Cleveland. Their defense has allowed 1 rushing touchdown. Again, with Cam, I think they're a nightmare to face. I think they match up with Kansas City very well. You know how Kansas City is sort of Baltimore's kryptonite? Belichick and this team with Cam Newton could possibly be Kansas City's kryptonite. I think they would have beaten them. They run the ball. They've got an emerging star at running back. You can't run on them, and they're the best coach team in the league.
Number 4.
The Seahawks. It's mostly I'm voting Russell Wilson 4th. It is a historically pathetic defense. Now, Jamal Adams has been banged up. They do have Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams. But if you look at most games, game-winning drives in the first 9 seasons of the NFL, Russell Wilson is first all time. Now, again, they got to go to Buffalo, and they got a game against the Rams on the road. So we'll get a little more clarity. But at this point, they've got playmakers. Russell's a playmaker. Jamal Adams a playmaker. DK Metcalf's a playmaker. Bobby Wagner's a playmaker. They've got flaws, but they've also, when you can get outplayed and win like they did against Minnesota, that speaks well of you. They got outplayed and won. Not a lot of teams in the NFL can say that.
Number 3.
Ravens. I like them. I think we're selling too much of our stock. Highest yards per carry in the NFL. Again, that's very Cleveland. They not only run the ball, but they'll pop runs. This is an aggressive home run running game. They can pop stuff. They lead in scoring defense. I thought last week Lamar looked a little banged up, so I didn't take a ton from last week's performance. So don't sell your Raven stock. If you're selling it, I'm buying it. I got him at 3.
Number 2.
Kansas City is number 2. Listen, the loss to the Raiders snapped a 13-game winning streak. But I will say this about this team. They can be maddeningly inconsistent, even offensively half to half. They can have bad halves, bad series. They're just not as consistent as I'd like offensively. They don't have a ceiling. I mean, when they're on, lights out. Good night. Thanks for flying United. But they don't get to that point a lot. And I think Andy Reid's concern is, hey, we got to button up some stuff. When we're great, nobody's beating us. But we have some real holes and real droughts, and they did against the Raiders.
Number 1.
Green Bay. There's some really interesting numbers here, and he faces Brady this week. But here's some numbers that you can't deny. They're averaging 6.8 yards a play. That is a Vegas number. Vegas loves that. If you're averaging almost 7 yards a play, why are they doing it? The offensive line is ranked number 1 in the NFL. Aaron hasn't thrown a pick. They're not getting penalized. They're not turning the ball over. I think their defense is probably a little better than we give it credit for because Aaron is so fantastic. We pay so much attention to Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay's offense that their defenses are rarely bad. I think it's a good, solid defense. Certainly, there's some bad defenses in the NFC. I think Green Bay's the best team right now. Fewest sacks allowed, no interceptions, 7 yards a play, a better defense. Their special teams are reliable. If Devontae Adams is healthy and he's got some injury history, I think it's a Super Bowl winning team. How about that? What do you think there, Joy?
I think Steelers fans are going to be upset with you, but
come on, they've beaten awful teams.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I have Pittsburgh at 9, Cleveland at 10. It's a 4.5 point spread, Fox Bet. And this morning, I would take Cleveland to cover. I would take the points.
Now, you think Pittsburgh would win?
I think that game is the best game of the weekend. I think it's 24-23. I think it's a great game. Yeah, well, you're right. Packers. Okay, there's 2 great games. It's Aaron Rodgers and Brady.
Yeah.
But the more I think about that, I'll take Aaron Rodgers in that game.
But you think Steelers-Browns will be the better game?
I think it's
closer.
It's going to be not the better. I misspoke. Brady Rodgers is just going to be all fireworks.
Also, Chiefs Bills is this weekend.
There's a lot of good games this weekend.
There are. So, but again, 4.5 points. I'll take Cleveland. As of this morning, I would take Cleveland to cover that.
Man, I was so off on Green Bay this year.
Yeah, they look great.
They look amazing.
Their offensive line. I'll tell you, it's funny about teams. Pittsburgh's one of these organizations. They just draft wide receivers and develop them. You know, it's funny about this. I've talked to coaches about this. I talked to a coach about this about a week ago. You think that college football is where you develop talent. You got a high school kid, you got to develop him because the high school coach doesn't know what he's doing. But the reality is, in college, you only get 17 hours a week to coach. That's what the NCAA says. So the truth is, in the NFL, you get a lot of gems, but they're raw. You got to develop guys in the NFL. There are teams, the Steelers develop wide receivers better than anybody. And I've said this more than once on this show. Green Bay, they develop offensive lines. So when's the last time the Packers had a bad O-line? And very rarely do they draft first round. So Green Bay's offensive line, and that Favre mostly had good O-lines. Aaron's had mostly really high-end offensive lines. Dallas has drafted great offensive linemen. Can they develop them? Because the chance of you getting Tyron Smith again and Zach Martin, Travis Frederick again, having guys that generationally good, Green Bay takes guys in the 3rd and 4th round and then become all pros.
And teams that develop their young players tend to be consistently good year after year and competitive year after year and don't have to go through full rebuilds.
Also, teams that don't develop players have to go through free agency, overpay for players, and free agency is historically about a 35% hit rate. So that the reason that Pittsburgh and Green Bay are always good is not just Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers. They develop their players. Packers, once again, Pro Football Focus this morning, best offensive line in the league is the Green Bay Packers. Peter King's around the corner coming up next. Going to the grocery store is on everybody's to-do list, but what if you love your pork chops and your beef and your steak and your salmon and your scallops, but you want it delivered to you? I mean, these days, I did some DoorDash last night. Sometimes you don't want to go out. You want something delivered to you. ButcherBox is great. They make accessing high-quality protein easier and more affordable than ever. They source their meat from farms with the best practices. That means the meat's humanely raised, no hormones ever, without antibiotics ever. ButcherBox gives you free-reign organic